Good deal. Cool.
Hey, thanks for coming on with us again today, man.
No problem.
Yeah, tonight we got writer at RealGM, the managing editor at LionsWire, co-host of the Detroit Lions podcast, and father of what appears to be two future professional athletes.
They're doing pretty well. Yeah, that works for me.
How you doing tonight, man? Everything going well?
Yeah. I actually just got back from the gym with my daughter, so we're going real well.
All right, yeah, that's how you get them to D1. That's what you're talking about. So
yeah, I can't beat her anymore, which really sucks since she's 13.
We all get to that point.
Yeah,
man. I wanted to get into the real deep nitty gritty questions though to start off this interview. Why don't you like Gus Johnson?
So I appreciate the level of enthusiasm when it's called for. I can't stand that it's a 2nd and 9 and it's a delayed handoff and it gets a half a yard and he treats it like it's the final out of the 7th game of the World Series. Every single time. I despise that. He takes away from the players of the game because when you never know when something good is actually happening because he's like that all the time. Like, dude, dial it down some on plays that don't really matter. It's been a point of contention for me for a long time, quite honestly.
He went nuts on like a 3rd and 1 stop in that Michigan-Wisconsin game last weekend, and I was like,
that
was cool, I guess. I'm like, it wasn't like a 60-yard touchdown thoa.
We get to see a punt now, so I'm excited. Yeah,
I'm like, I sort of see what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. I generally don't have the sound on. I listen to Dan Miller. I love Dan Miller. He's a friend of mine, so I have that attachment to him. But he's awesome. Like I wind up listening to a lot of play-by-play guys around the league. Dan is legit the best in the business, and I love him. So I support him by listening to him.
I should have last week, despite I actually do like Gus Johnson. I agree that I don't blame people that think he's over the top for sure, but I could not stand Aqib Talib last week. I was just like, all right, well, this is hard to listen. There's a lot of space between, broadcast. And I was like, you got to fill that in if you're a color commentator. So
yeah, he's learning. I actually do appreciate his insight on things, but you're right. There's a lot of, he needs a little bit more broadcasting school. Don't we?
I like his casual energy. I think that can bring a lot, especially once he learns how to just keep it flowing essentially. I think he has definitely a lot of potential there. But I want to ask another question here. Have you done any way too early mock drafts yet? The Lions appear they're going to be picking top 5 at this point. You got your eye on?
I haven't done a mock draft yet. And my editor at RealGM hasn't pushed me to do one, and I don't usually do one until mid-season. Mm-hmm. I have done more draft work this year than I have in the past at this juncture. Because I have a pretty good idea of like I cover the Browns and the Lions. I have a pretty good idea of what the Browns are going to be looking for, picking 30 to 32. And I have a pretty good idea of what the Lions are going to be looking for, picking 1 to 3, and then 20 to 24, and then 33 or 34 again. So I have done a lot of work on quarterbacks so far, even though I'm not convinced at all that they're going to take one early. I like Matt Corral from Ole Miss. I like the trajectory that he's on. And I had a discourse on Twitter with this, if people were familiar with that, where I compared him to the way that Dak Prescott rose up his senior season and Joe Burrow rose up his senior season as guys that you could see talent, but they had a lot of questions about their game and they answered those questions affirmatively in their last college season. And I see Corral doing a lot of the same things there. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be Dak Prescott or Joe Burrow, but I appreciate the developmental arc. I like catching guys that are going up rather than guys that peak a little bit early. That's how you wind up with Jared Goff.
Or Mitchell Trubisky.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Goff, a little bit more of a Lions question, but how much do you feel like we can actually really judge his play this year, given the complete lack of any real receiver threats?
Yeah.
How much can you judge it as a fan? How much are the coaching staff? Can they really evaluate him?
Yeah, that's a good question. And because it's a new coaching staff and they don't have any history with doing this sort of thing, and we don't have any history with this sort of thing because we've had Stafford for a long time, it's tough to gauge. I will say he takes care of the ball well, and I think in general he operates Anthony Lynn's offense the way that Anthony Lynn wants it operated. And those are plus marks, regardless of who he's got at receiver.
Mhm.
From a more distant standpoint, a more critical standpoint, I hate the way that he throws to his first read on every play. He predetermines where he's going to go as soon as he steps under center, and that really bothers me. That's the sign of a bad quarterback. But I'll give him a little bit of hedge here. That's also the sign of a quarterback that doesn't trust his weapons. And given the weapons that he's got, to your point, I can't fault him too hard for that. So the thing I will say, has he made anybody better as a receiver this year? And I would say probably not. And that's, for me, that's one of the things that I want to judge. Like, is Quintez Cephas getting appreciably better? Is Khalif Raymond looking like he belongs in the NFL? And I would say that no matter if David Blau was quarterback, Tim Boyle probably wouldn't be that good, but I think you could get by with a backup quarterback doing roughly the same as what Goff is with those guys. Now I'm not going to discount his leadership, because I do think that he has control of the offense. And like I said, I think Anthony Lynn trusts him, and that's why I'm fairly certain he will be the starting quarterback, at least at the beginning of the year in 2022. But yeah, it's a very good question, because it's difficult to evaluate, because I mean, your number one wide receiver is Khalif Raymond. He barely ever saw the field in Tennessee, and Tennessee went out and upgraded their wide receiving core because their good ones weren't good enough. So it's tough, man.
Yeah, I was thinking that the other day. Trinity Benson, I mean, was a guy that was borderline going to make the Broncos roster before they made a trade for him. And then Kadarius Hodge was another 5th, 6th wide receiver off the Browns. And, we're getting Quintez Cephas was a 6th-round draft pick. Khalif Raymond was like the 5th wide receiver in Tennessee. Tyrell Williams is like typically a high-end 3rd wide receiver, and he was our best guy going forward. So, again, I had a similar question written down as well. Like, I don't know how we evaluate this quarterback, but I do agree. I think he is going to be the quarterback to start out next year. And I don't know, like you said, you like Matt Corral, but I really have tried to watch as many games as possible, because college football is just more fun to watch right now, to find the quarterback that may eventually lead this Lions team in 1 to 2 years. And I don't really like what I'm seeing so far. Corral's been the most consistently solid. I think I like that. Spencer Rattler was supposed to have such high upside, and he's kind of been rough.
The guys who were presumed at the top off season, like Sam Howell, Rattler. I'm
thinking Desmond Ridder
and Desmond Ridder. I know I'm combining them both. I actually kind of like Ridder. I like him better than Rattler, actually. And like some people were throwing Keaton Slovis, who doesn't even start at USC anymore, into that package. Like the guys who were expected to be good, they haven't risen up. But you're seeing like Kenny Pickett at Pittsburgh is a guy that's really caught my eye lately. Very accurate. Another guy who could have come out last year, went back to school and got better at the things that he needed to get better at in NFL eyes. So that has my attention. That's a guy. I don't think he's a high ceiling guy, but I think he's a guy that can do what Mac Jones is doing in New England. And I think we all watched that Sunday night. Everybody in the world did. And I think most people came away like, you know what, the Patriots might have something there. And that's sort of the way I feel about Kenny Pickett at Pittsburgh right now.
It's funny. I actually put Pickett I did a way too early mock draft last year, and I had Pickett as a 5th round quarterback to target for the Lions last year. And then obviously he came back in, and that was kind of unbeknownst to me. I didn't notice that he said he was coming back until like right when draft season was starting to kick off. I was like, oh, we can't get him now. Okay. So yeah, I'm just, college football is more fun to watch, but this is why I also enjoy mock drafts all year long, just to kind of gauge talent over the course of the season. Kayvon Thibodeau has been a guy that's been right there at the top consistently since July mock drafts of 2022. And I think he'll be there at the end too.
Yeah, and I think as Lions fans, what else are you going to do?
Cry a lot.
The future at this point, but how are you, I guess, evaluating or judging like Dan Campbell in-game decisions right now? Because there's been some question marks, some 4th down decisions. I think not kicking, not taking points a couple times, things like that. And I know I don't really know how much stock to even put into this whole season from a win-loss standpoint. Probably not much, but that's one thing I was always looking at is, hey, can this guy coach and adjust in a game, and what's his decision making like? So
Yeah, so I don't think he had a good game in week 4. I don't. I thought the clock management at the end of the first half was poor. I'm not going to get on him for choosing to go for it, because when you need 2 scores and you're that close, get the touchdown, because the touchdown's harder to get than the field goal. And when you're at the 12-yard line, kicking the field goal there is pointless. You go for the touchdown there. I know the analytics say opposite, but I think the analytics are wrong there. I'm just gonna, I'll be out on my own island with that and live with that, because if you don't get the 7, the 3 is never going to matter. Like if you get the 7 or the 8, then the 3 matters. So and if you're that close and you've got, the offense was rolling fairly well at that point, pulling the offense off the field there was a mistake to me. I wish that Goff would have looked a little bit harder at someone else, and I wish the offensive line hadn't have broken down so quickly. But overall, I think Campbell it shows that he's a rookie coach at times. I think his decision to challenge a couple of calls, so he was 4 for his first 4 on challenges, and now he's missed his last 2, and neither one of them should have ever been challenged. I wonder if he's listening to somebody upstairs, or if he's just going with the heat of the moment and the players, because they've been poor. As far as like play calling, I really think that, honestly, I think he lets Anthony Lynn and Aaron Glenn do their thing. Like he has like executive override order, but he's letting his coordinators coordinate. And having seen a lot of other coaches that don't do that, and don't, especially young head coaches or rookie head coaches, inexperienced head coaches, they try to do too much, and it really messes up what their overarching theme of the team, like being the leader of the team and being responsible for all the different position groups. I think Dan Campbell's done a really good job at that. But some of the in-game decisions are questionable, and it's fair to question those. The end of the 49ers game, I don't think that he handled the end of that game well. I think he could have squeezed an extra couple of plays out of that, using the clock and using timeouts better. But that's life with a rookie coach.
Sure. I believe that's probably why he was able to pull so many of these big name position coaches and coordinators is because he, gave them their word. You're going to be able to run how you see fit, and obviously executive override, like you mentioned. But Anthony Lynn's proven in his position. Aaron Glenn is not, but I think Aaron Glenn's shown enough as a defensive backs coach to try to take it to the next level. And I actually like what Glenn's been able to do with a pretty bad defense.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I also wanted to ask about injuries. At this point, we're starting to see him pile up. Sewell's banged up, and I want to ask about Sewell. Pre-injury and obviously pre-struggles, he had the 2 really strong first 2 games at left tackle. And now maybe because he's a little beat up or so. But do you agree that he should go back to right tackle when Decker's healthy?
Absolutely. He never should have left right tackle. They should have left him there so he wasn't messed up, and they should have put Matt Nelson at left tackle. That's been a mistake the entire time. Taylor Decker is your left tackle. They drafted Penei Sewell. So, and I know this because Penei talked about it when he first got to Detroit. He knew that he was either going to Cincinnati or Detroit, and both of those teams had told him well ahead of time, you are our right tackle. You are not an NFL left tackle. So he did all of his draft prep as a right tackle, knowing what he knew. And so, the whole thing that, he's a left tackle. Well, he doesn't have the ideal build of left. He's not long. He doesn't have long arms. He doesn't have a particularly good reach. He doesn't have a great punch as a pass protector. Everything that he doesn't do well suits you a lot better at right tackle than left tackle. So I'm frustrated that they ever moved him in the first place. Now it's in his head that, oh my God, he's spinning. And I think the way that they've handled him, quite frankly, has been poor. If you're going to criticize Dan Campbell on something, the way that they've handled Sewell is a good. That's a check mark in your favor if you're on the anti-Dan Campbell thing, because they've not handled it well. They've got him messed up right now, and I'm hopeful enough that they do have enough good coaching in that room, and that Penei is a smart enough kid and a young enough kid that he'll be resilient and get through it. but it's a little worrisome because one of the things that bothers me is how they sold him as like we had to have this guy. Like we didn't even consider other people, and I know that Brad Holmes sort of hedged on that, but they didn't consider anybody else. Like they saw Jamar Chase go at 5, and they're like, Panay's ours, and threw a damn party. And I don't think that they were prepared for the fact that he might not be great right away. And I certainly think that a lot of, and I'll raise my hand here a little bit in that, the Lions media and the specifically the Lions fans had no there was no what if. It's like he's going to be awesome. Like he's a Hall of Famer right away. Yeah. And I don't think they manage those expectations very well. And I think that's turning on him. And again, I think that's a sign of an organization that doesn't have the sort of experience that you want handling something like that.
Well, and I think, it should have been expected. It's really difficult to pick up offensive line play in the NFL, especially for a guy who didn't even play the year previous in college. Like you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the same as you drafting a stud receiver and he just goes out there and he's just an incredible athlete and he can go do his thing. Like it's not the same. So I feel like people who thought about it probably knew, but I agree. Lions fans were not tempered in their expectations, and the organization kind of built him up as this, the savior of the team here. And it's just like, he's the right tackle. Like it's going to be a work in progress, and that's okay. It doesn't mean he's a bust.
I still think he's going to be a great right tackle in time. I really do.
It just means it might take 2 years.
Yeah, that's okay. It's not there right now. Exactly. This team is not there right now. You're looking at 2022, 2023.
Yeah, we got time.
Yeah, we do. We really do. It's hard to remember that sometimes, but that's something that I need to do a better job of stressing in my my podcast and radio appearances and Twitter interactions. We do have time. And it's easy for me to forget that sometimes. So thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. So kind of going along with that, with everything that's kind of already happened, they've played some close games, and then just kind of were never able to pull it out and come out on top. And now the injuries are starting to pile up. So on an already pretty depleted roster, do you even see a win on this schedule?
I do. I think they're going to beat Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh is really bad, and they know it.
Yeah.
They know that the gig is up with Ben Roethlisberger, and it's sad to watch, quite honestly. So I'm a native Clevelander. I take some civic. I'm not a Browns fan, but I do take some pride in Pittsburgh failing, and it's been schadenfreude a little bit on that. My dad texts me all the time. He's a diehard Browns fan, and Browns fans have an interesting relationship with that, sort of the way that the Lions fans do with Bears fans. Like, oh, you guys can't ever get your quarterback right. Well, there's some joy going on in Cleveland from that, and I do think, especially if TJ Watt doesn't play, because the way that they looked last weekend, my God, that's the worst team in football, with the possible exception of Houston. Pittsburgh's got nothing right now. Now maybe they'll get it right against Detroit, but I like if Taylor Decker's back, if Penei Sewell plays. I don't think Frank Ragnow will be back in time, unfortunately, but Tyrell Williams should be back by then. I would hope that a concussion doesn't last 7 weeks. If it does, he probably needs to retire. I think that's a win. They do get Atlanta later in the season, do they not?
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
They can win that one. I won't put it in pen, but they should expect to win that one too, because Atlanta is also at a situation where it's run its course with Matt Ryan. They have a new rookie coach who, by the way, is taking a lot more heat from the local media and local fans on his decision making in games than what Dan Campbell is. And Arthur Smith was a guy who was a fairly popular second place candidate for Detroit. So it's tough to be a rookie head coach. I'm certainly not going to write either of those guys off. I'm not even going to write off David Culley in Houston because, my God, that organization, that's a train wreck. That's a train wreck inside a dumpster fire, man.
Can we write off Urban Meyer, though?
Yes. Okay, that's a fair one. I'm with you there. My God. Wow.
What is that?
Wow.
Hey, Jim Harbaugh is not wrong when he said that it seems that controversy follows him everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
He's a piece of work, man. I have distant family who was screwed by him during his time at Florida. So I'm very appreciative that it's going poorly for him.
I mean, to have the gall to go up there and like explain it that way was incredible. That was like, how do you even do that? Like, and how do you just have the fortitude to even like that? Is just,
I don't know, man. That's
incredible.
The disconnect that he has between like being Urban Meyer and like being a normal guy, it's wild to me that he doesn't realize that he's Urban Meyer.
Yeah, he was more surprised that like somebody noticed him at his own bar.
Yeah, in Columbus.
In Columbus. Like the bar has his name on it.
Ohio State.
There's a face of him right behind him.
Yeah, like that was mind-boggling. And then he's up there talking about Trevor Lawrence, like he warned Trevor about his bachelor party, and like what? Like what are you talking about?
So you looking for an invite? You're looking for a
a
hooker to do blow off or thigh or something? I don't know.
Yeah, he was. That can't last much longer.
No, it can't. It can't.
There's no way. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
You brought up Pittsburgh, and I was looking at the schedule personally, and I said this is a high best case scenario, but 6 wins out of 13 remaining games, I think, is the max. And I was looking at them, and I said, I think they could beat the Eagles at home on Halloween.
I agree with that too. That's a game they could win. Yes.
Possibly the Bears at home if they make the right adjustments. And I think the Steelers I also had as the third. So I think they could have 3. But I think the maybes are the Vikings at home. Maybe they beat the Bengals at home, and then the Falcons.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are going to be a problem just because they spread the field out and they have such good receivers. That's a really bad matchup for the secondary that the Lions have. Like as far as overall talent, if you put the two teams together and just compare top to bottom talent, I think they're fairly equivalent. I think injured, obviously the Lions don't stack up, but where the Bengals are really good is exactly where the Lions are really bad, and that makes for a bad matchup.
Yeah. And that kind of makes me lean into what is the greatest position of need to address this offseason, whether free agency or draft. Is it secondary probably then?
I think they have to get a safety because I think Aaron Glenn's defense works best when you have a playmaking alpha male safety back there. And Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame would be phenomenal for that. I would love that.
Do you like them? Do you like that at 2 though?
No, I don't. That's tough value because you can get there's other I like Jalen Catalon out of Arkansas a lot. It's like for a late second or their first third round pick. I think that guy can really play. There's some good safeties in this draft. So if you're that high, you can't take a wide receiver at 2. I don't think there's one to take this year, anyways. You're looking at pass rusher. A good pass rusher erases a lot of sins. So you got Kayvon Thibodeau. A guy that I don't think enough people talk about him is DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. He's as close to Ndamukong Suh as you can get right now, coming out of the draft. And I know some NFL teams that I can't say who they are will have him as their best defensive player in this draft. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't surprise me if he sneaks in as a top 3 pick. But you look at it. Jacksonville is going to be right there. They don't need a quarterback. Houston, God knows what they're going to do. And they'll probably trade the pick anyways, depending on what's going on with Deshaun Watson, which is just, it's insane to me that situation is still out there. Other bad teams, they don't need quarterbacks like Philadelphia. They
might. They just drafted Zach Wilson.
Yeah, exactly. And he's certainly no great shakes, although he lit up Tennessee's really bad secondary. The bad teams, the Colts, they just traded for Carson Wentz. They traded their first for Carson Wentz. So right now, I think the Eagles actually have picks 5, 7, and 8 if it were drafted today or something like that. There's some weird stuff going on. Yeah, I want to go defense, honestly, because I do think that getting the defensive identity would do a lot for this team. Being able to we're going to take this away from you no matter who you are. And we can dictate that. And I think that Aaron Glenn is the type of coordinator who can come up with creative defenses with star players to be able to do that. So a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, a guy like DeMarvin Leal, somebody up front who's a real true difference maker. I think that's probably the best priority. I think that's getting the most bang for your buck at that point, because with your second pick, you can get if you want a quarterback and you're not enamored with the top names, that's where you get a guy like Desmond Ridder or Kenny Pickett or someone like that. Your second round pick, that seems to be a sweet spot for secondary players. Corner, there's some good corners in this draft. There's some good safeties in this draft. That, day two, I kind of like that idea there. I just pray to God they do not draft another offensive lineman and they do not draft another running back, because they don't need either of those.
Yeah.
And honestly, anything else would be fine. It wouldn't kill me if they used a 7th round pick on a kicker, honestly. Although depending on, so I guess they activated Austin Seibert today off of the COVID list, and that makes for an interesting decision because Ryan Santoso was pretty darn good.
And they're both on the roster right now still. I think an active roster, right? They're both on the 53.
No, Santoso reverted to the practice squad.
Okay,
so
now see that transaction.
He was a call up for the weekend. So he's back. So they seem to be okay there. A little shaky, but we got there. I mean, Santoso was the 5th kicker since April, something like that.
Yeah. We had no kickers.
So. It's what I expected though. When we went through Freeze and Henry and Akers and
my God,
for a little while after Hansen left.
I think that makes sense though, to your point. If they can just figure out the defense to make that a strength, suddenly a strength, and give Aaron Glenn what he needs, then I wouldn't be freaking out so bad about maybe another season of Jared Goff. Because I feel like if he's going to be a guy that's not going to, he might not go out there and win you a football game, but he's not going to lose you a football game. And then you then you can make progress. And then, especially if you don't like any of the quarterbacks in this draft, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if you don't see that guy that you want your franchise to be around eventually, then you can probably live with another year of that if your defense is able to hold up your team a little bit more. So that
I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm there with you. I would hope though that they would address and I prefer honestly free agency for a wide receiver. I would also prefer free agency to get a number 1 corner. But you need multiples at both. No offense to the young guys right now, because I do think that there is quite a bit of potential with AJ Parker and Jerry Jacobs and even Bobby Price, as weird as the season's gone on. I'm not out on Jeff Okudah yet, although he's really got to show it quick and got to recover, and that's not going to be easy. But they got to have. Ideally, they need a number 1 and a number 2 corner this offseason. They need a number 1 and a number 2 wide receiver this offseason.
Yeah,
that's a lot of needs to fill. So if you can build up that defensive front, sort of the way that the Chargers were at the end of the Phillip Rivers era, where they had a really good front and they had one good player in their secondary. Not counting Jason Verrett, who was hurt all the time because he would have been number 2.
Still is.
Oh God, that hurt. That sucked for him, man. I felt really bad. I hate seeing guys get hurt. Yeah. As I get older and as I get to know more players and know them for longer, I freaking hate seeing injuries to guys, that are trying so hard like that. I can't stand.
Especially Verrett. So much talent, and it just hits him every time. The injury bug has his number.
Hate that. I hate that for people.
So obviously Jamie Collins went for nothing, which I think a lot of people anticipated. I think he showed his cards a little bit too soon on that as well. But do the Lions even have a player that they could move at this point at the deadline, before the deadline, at the deadline, for any kind of draft value?
Yeah, I think Trey Flowers has some value, assuming he comes back healthy. I think there would be teams that would be interested in him, because he's positionally versatile. He can play as an end. He can play standing up on the outside. So he would be like, I know that there's this alleged taboo about trading within the division. He'd be perfect for what Green Bay needs right now. I don't know if they do that. Yeah. So he's got some value. Darren Fells, the problem is that they do like to run him as a blocking tight end. He plays 20 to 25 snaps a game, and they literally have nobody else. They only have 2 tight ends on the roster, and they do use that role. but he's a guy that you saw Logan Thomas for Washington go down today. If Washington claws back into it, and they're certainly not out of it in that division, they could possibly flip you a 6th or a 7th for him. Beyond that, there's not a lot, man. I mean, Alex Anzalone maybe, but again, this is a guy who Aaron Glenn loves. That guy, like he wanted him, and I think he has played better when Jamie Collins hasn't been in his way. So there's not a lot, man. There really isn't.
No. He doesn't have the talent, but he does have the energy that Kyle Vandenbosch brought when he was with Detroit. And I think that as long as Anzalone plays hard and keeps trying to be that veteran leader and stuff out there to show that, hey, losing sucks. Let's try to get our way out of this. And I do like that about Anzalone, but there's definitely times where he seems out of position, but he always seems to be there at some point.
Yeah, he's always trying his best. And he's always been like I think he was a 4th round pick, I want to say. And like he played with Jared Davis at Florida, and you can sort of see the dynamic there where he's a lot better when he's not the best linebacker on your team. Jared Davis obviously didn't pan out in the NFL, but at Florida he was pretty damn good. And that's sort of where Anzalone needs to be. He had Demario Davis next to him in New Orleans. That guy's great. Sort of a late career renaissance for Demario that turned into a Pro Bowler. God bless him, because when he was in Cleveland, he wasn't very good. So you got to hope that you get guys like that coming forward. I think Khalif Raymond has sort of been that for Detroit, but again, you can't trade him away. Offensive line, maybe they have some depth, but now you got to use it. You just can't do what they're doing with the injuries. That limits so much of what you can do.
Do you know what happened with that snap? I mean, it's before Frank Ragnow went off, but I keep watching that, and it looks like a major Madden glitch.
I forget where I heard the explanation. It might have been from Lomas Brown, actually. If it wasn't Lomas, I apologize for misquoting, but it was somebody of that ilk who said that Goff went forward to change the protection, to slide the protections around, and Ragnow heard the cue to snap it when that wasn't what he was supposed to hear, and that's why he snapped the ball. I don't know that. I'm sure if you ask Ragnow, if I ever get the chance, I will do that and ask him about it, because he'll be straight up about it. He's like that.
Yeah, it was just, and it's just the Lions' luck that the ball. I mean, because I've seen snaps, all the time, usually once a week from somewhere where the snap is not, comes early or, whatever. And a lot of time it's when they're in the shotgun, so that's a lot better actually. But it just was the Lions' luck that it bounced that way. So
unbelievable that Bilal Nichols of all people catches it. Like he can't catch the cold.
Come on,
he catches it. It caught him.
Yeah, exactly. It was I saw that and I'm like, all right, well, this
not our day.
No, it's not going to happen today, guys. It just is what it is at this point.
Well, hey man, I know you are pulling double duty, recording a Detroit Lions podcast. Definitely looking forward to listening to that. Are you posting that this evening still, or are you going to have to sneak it in tomorrow?
That will get posted tomorrow. You can watch the live stream on YouTube tonight if you wish. The audio product comes out whenever the co-host Chris, he handles everything. He doesn't let me touch any buttons or do anything with the engineering. He's good at that. He used to be a radio DJ and board op, so he knows what he's doing with that kind of stuff. Nice. I even when I was in studio with Big Drew and Jim, Drew had a specific thing that if I tried to touch a button, he was allowed to hit me. So it's up to Chris to post that stuff.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it. And again, once again, we appreciate your insight. We appreciate you making time for us this evening, and look forward to again talking to you in the future.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for good questions. I appreciate it. It was thoughtful and insightful questions. I have a definite appreciation for that with some of the other things that I've done in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate the compliment.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Take care, man.
Thanks.
See you. Everybody, so.
All right, go ahead. Say it. I want to hear it. I want to hear what you have to say about Urban Meyer.
My Urban Meyer take. He presents himself as this moral authority above people, right? And he always has. He presents himself as this great person, right? And we've got people are out there saying like, hey, like, there's something deeper going on here, like something wrong with his marriage, something wrong in his personal life, whatever. So maybe we, shouldn't be going after him like this. I'm sorry. when you present yourself as above everybody else and as this moral authority above everybody else, I'm going to take some laughs at you when you're being a complete idiot and you can't own up to your own problems and you can't. I'm going to make fun of you because you've put yourself in that position. And then you're blown away that you put yourself on this pedestal, and now suddenly people are coming after you, and suddenly you're surprised somebody's recording you in your own bar.
You're in a position where your character
going to be
cannot be
scrutinized.
questioned. What he did was not a crime. I do not appreciate it as someone that obviously respects the sanctity of marriage, but like in the same breath, and I'm sure Urban says he respects the sanctity of marriage. So that's the other thing. It's like, do you? Your character cannot be put in question when you are the head coach of a NFL franchise. If you're a AAF franchise and your coach is doing this, I mean, we kind of expect those guys to blow off hookers' thighs. Like, I mean, we do expect that. You're in an NFL position now. You're getting paid butt tons of money. You better get your character together.
Here's the other thing. I don't think that's even the biggest thing. It's the fact that he's presented himself that way his whole career, though. And
since he was with Tebow in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been it's even like, so he was teaching an ethics and integrity class at Ohio State. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? Like, this doesn't make any
I saw your retweet. I saw where you took the video of like them laughing right when they announced.
Well, that can't be real. That's got to be fake, right? And it blows. Everybody knows. That's the thing. Like, there's been this not unspoken, because some people have spoken about it. Jim Harbaugh, one of them. But everybody knows this guy's a snake and has always been just this oily, slimy dude. And pretty much everything he's done, right? I mean, he was running basically a penitentiary at Florida for a while before he missed the left. But everybody knows that, right? It's kind of like this unspoken thing, but people have just brushed it under the rug because of the institutions he's been at, and they just, I mean, he's won football games, and no one's gonna ever really deny that he was arguably one of the top 2 or 3 college football coaches of all time, probably, right? But that doesn't work in the NFL. The stuff that he's trying to pull doesn't work in the NFL.
Yeah, these are adult men now.
These are men. Like, he went up there. He's like, yeah, I apologize to the team individually. I'm like, they don't care. They just don't want you to go out there and do stupid things. They play the Titans this week. That's all they want to care about. Like, they don't care. Like, I promise you, they do not care. Like, all they're sitting there is saying, just tell us the truth and let's move on, because we have a football game this week. And I'd rather not be talking about your infidelity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, like, go home and love your wife, or figure out how to try to love somebody correctly, but not
let's play football here. Let's move on. They don't care. So that's my whole thing with it. And he just doesn't understand it. And then obviously the media is going to go crazy with it, as they should. I mean, he's put himself in this position. You should expect to be scrutinized in everything you do. And don't be surprised when it hits the fan, when you screw up and when you do something stupid. And, who knows? I'm sure it's not I'm sure there's many other times he hasn't been caught doing something stupid. It's just, as anybody, everybody makes mistakes, sure, but you're held to a higher standard when you're in that type of position. And he clearly doesn't recognize that. And that's the part that's ridiculous, in my opinion. So, end of rant.
Yeah, that was good stuff. So let's get to the Lions rant. I know we do one of these every single week because it's the freaking Detroit Lions. Yeah. But they struggled against the Chicago Bears, which many people anticipated that had to be a game to get your season back in course. If you really expected anything other than a rebuild this year, which apparently some Twitter mongrels believe that there could have been a competent season here.
Right.
I don't know why. I expected a better game than this. They no-showed again that full first half. Defense actually tried to stay competent, but that they're also playing a relatively incompetent offense. So again, both sides of the football pretty ineffective, and just never got their mojo. I don't know how else to explain it. What do the Lions got to do going forward when they're now playing the Vikings in Minnesota this week?
I mean, like we talked about with Jeff a little bit, and they're depleted now. My worry, here's my worry, and this is why I even asked the question of him, do you see wins on this? You want to continue to see the buy-in from the players, right? Because they're obviously bought in. I wouldn't even say they weren't bought in last week. They were. It's just they didn't execute and they aren't a good team. It's evident they're not a good team. We knew it going into the year. Nothing's changed. If anything, they've gotten worse because they're now extremely injured, right? But you worry is that this thing just kind of goes crazy off the rails, right? And it just kind of spins out of control. And then you start losing players from a buy-in standpoint, because if you're sitting there 0-7, right, or 0-8 or something, that's when it's like this thing's over already, guys. Like, it is already probably over if we're being honest. But at least when you're sitting 0-4, you can sit there and say, hey, we've got more games in front of us than we do behind us still, right? But now, I don't know. It's up to the coaching staff to just keep that buy-in there. That's what I want to see. I'm not saying I need to see wins. I don't need to see wins. If they can keep that buy-in there, then I'm gonna continue to have faith in the staff. And I do. I'm not gonna give up on them after a season with a terrible roster. But I want to see the staff get better on game day. Like, I want to see Campbell get better. Like, we kind of talked about some of his question mark decisions here and there. I don't think he's been downright awful, but I don't think he's been. It shows that he's a rookie head coach at times. But I want to continue to see things just get better from a coaching standpoint every day, and then I want to see the players continue to buy in. If I see that, I could care less if they lose every game. And if they lose every game, hey, we got the number one pick, and cool. I mean.
And that's the thing with the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell specifically. I think Dan Campbell won this job not solely, but quite a bit on just his energy and his ability to stay positive and try to stay focused and keep pushing and keep fighting.
Yep.
That's got to be what they need more than ever right now, because, I mean, obviously the fans most fans, I would say, admittedly knew this was going to be a rebuild. This is a need to restructure a lot of this roster to get back on track. But NFL players, despite them, maybe if they look at themselves and look at their team, maybe they see it themselves too, but they don't want to admit that they're not going to sacrifice and beat up their body for a lost cause. So they're still going to go out there and not mill their chances anytime they get them. They're going to go, not throwing in the towel. You're not going to take that kind of abuse for nothing. So, that the NFL, it's really just hard to tank in general. Players may inwardly know that they're not good or the team isn't good, but
I don't think you'll see any tank necessarily. I think you would see like within games. Like, I think every game they're going to come out ready, fired up, ready to go. But like within games, you see it all the time when it's like this game is over already. Mm-hmm. Suddenly the energy level just comes down.
And that's what I want to see. That's why Campbell won this job, is because he's the positive, good energy.
This is the test. This is the test.
But can he maintain this good, positive, keep fighting energy, even when they're looking at 0-17 in the face, perhaps in week 18? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Is he going to be able to maintain that an entire year?
Or even 2-15? Like, that's not. I mean, that's really not that big a difference.
You got to get the monkey off the back and try to get that dub first. But the problem is just trying to maintain positivity despite having perhaps one of the worst rosters in NFL in your franchise history.
Yep.
And I think he's the man for the job for that purpose. It's hard to believe he's a long-term solution. But I think that this energy is needed more than ever on a team that has to get that culture built of staying positive, keep fighting, even when you're down and it looks like the odds are against you.
And I think the Lions front office, after being restructured, kind of had the sense that, like, hey, we need a guy that can do this, that is not really going to flinch in the face of just getting their butts kicked for possibly, the whole season and maybe even a little bit longer than that. Just they realized the state of the roster and what they had to do to rebuild it. And I think fans, I kind of agree with Jeff though. Like, the Lions, this is like going back to that Sewell thing. Like, the Lions front office and their coaching staff also kind of need to be able to temper expectations to an extent in their messaging to fans, in my opinion. Right. And this goes with the Sewell thing. This goes with just in general, like, Dan Campbell's going to get everybody fired up. Right. And he should. And that's, I mean, you got to sell tickets somehow. But you can't you're putting too much pressure on a 20-year-old rookie right tackle or 21-year-old rookie right tackle if they're doing what they're doing with him right now and presenting him as this guy that's going to change this whole roster. You might think that down the road he's that talent internally, but you don't need to present that out to the fan base, because suddenly then fans are just going to run wild with it. And then suddenly Sewell's going to catch wind of it, and he's a young guy, he's impressionable, like he's going to change the way he's thinking. And then, like Jeff said, now he's spinning, and now they got to kind of rein that back in. And I don't know if they will, or if they'll be able to right away.
Yeah, you don't want to turn him into like a Gosder Shereless or something.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the worry, for a guy like that, like Shereless. I mean, by all accounts, was incredibly talented, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it might still be, but like you just could never get on track. And that's what you hope to see from they just rein it back in. The expectations don't need to be. We're not expecting you to be an all-pro guy first year, like Tristan Wirfs is a good example of a guy that he could. I would love to see that be the similar track, right?
Yeah, because he was good last year. He was on the all-rookie
last year.
team. Yeah,
he was great last year, but like it didn't really click until like the latter half of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was struggling early, and then the talent's there. And Wirfs, I think, had a lower or a higher floor up front than Sewell anyway, just because he played more college football. Bigger, just different guy anyway. But that's the kind of track I want to see. That like, hey, you can be good. Like, but Wirfs had no expectations either. Like going into that team, like there's nothing piled on him. He wasn't, no one. The Bucks. It just happened that he had to end up being the starter, right? It wasn't expected of him going in. So they just got to be careful. And fans got to understand. And we talked about it before the year. You can't be expecting anything this year. This is year zero. Like they talk about it in rebuilds, year zero, man. Like you can't just throw it all out when it comes to stats, win, loss, any of that. All you got to see is this is a culture building and roster rebuilding year. And that's all you got to take from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So looking at Minnesota, they play at 1 p.m. on Fox, but they are dealing with injuries. Hawkinson's beat up right now. Sewell's obviously beat up right now. Swift's going to just be beat up every week because that's what Swift and Williams are actually both questionable because they're the center of the offense right now. And that's a concern. So Delvin Cook is questionable, but likely to play. Michael Pierce, questionable, likely to play. Nick Vigil, questionable, likely to play. So Minnesota's not really dealing with the injury bug like we are right now. And Kirk Cousins actually has a pretty good touchdown to interception ratio, 9-1.
Yep.
And he's got weapons. Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne has actually played pretty well too. Justin Jefferson. Yep. And then obviously Alexander Madison and Dalvin Cook to kind of switch up that run game. That's a good offense. I don't see this being a win playing in Minneapolis, especially, but even if it was a home game right now in the injury circumstances, they're going to be digging deep. I'm pretty sure the offensive line is going to look like Evan Brown at center. You're probably going to have to move Hal Vaitai. If Sewell misses the game, Vaitai has to kick over to left tackle. You probably have to then play Logan Stenberg and Jonah Jackson at guard with Evan Brown at center, which means Matt Nelson is your other tackle. Yep. You're looking at Vaitai Nelson. You move in, and you're looking at Stenberg Jackson, and then you're looking at Evan Brown on that line, and that is disgusting. That immediately went from a top 8 to 10 offensive line in the NFL to now probably 30 to 32, pretty easily. Yep. And that's
they have guys there, Jeff mentioned it too. They have bodies there, guys that might be serviceable if they were surrounded by. If they had to plug in around the other good linemen, they'd probably be okay. But yeah, if you've pretty much got an entire replacement line for the most part in there, it's not gonna be good. And I don't think it's gonna get ugly because I'm not super highly, I don't regard the Vikings super high in high regard, but I still think the defense probably isn't going to be able to stop them very well. I could see them scheming up some things to maybe slow down Cook for a half. But it's, especially if he's a little banged up, sounds like he's, dealing with something. But I'm sure he'll play. I don't see this offense mustering more than 14 points. Maybe 21 points. I know they've surprised me a few times before, but I don't see it. Goff isn't going to go out there and just break games for you or just, make like Jeff said, he doesn't make anybody better. He's fine. He's just completely bleh. He's the most bleh quarterback in the NFL. And you know what? That's fine for what the Lions have right now. But
he just reminds me of Cade McNamara quite a bit, though. Like you said in the interview yourself, he's not going to win you games. He's not going to lose you games. That's essentially Cade McNamara right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just game manager is probably an overused term because I feel like game manager is like good in my opinion. Like
it can be, yeah.
It can be a good thing, especially if you've got a really good roster around you. But you have to be a guy, when you don't have a good roster, you got to make the guys around you better. Like Tom Brady, perfect example. Sometimes there were a few years he doesn't, not right now, but there were quite a few years with the Patriots. He had some terrible receivers on paper, if you think about it. I mean, he made Chris Hogan look like a pretty good football player. I mean, not what came from
even Deion Branch and David Patton and like all those guys. Whenever they went anywhere else, they struggled. David Givens, like when he went somewhere, he wasn't good. Like, so you take away that 1 year where he had Dante Stallworth and Randy Moss and Wes Welker. It's like they were pretty much butt.
Yeah. So and he's he's still dominated with them. So that's a quarterback's making guys better versus Goff is a guy he's just running the offense. Like Risdon said, he's getting to his first read, and then if that's not there, he's checking it down to the back or the tight end.
Yeah, I was going to interject and say that's essentially me in Madden. I pick who I'm throwing to right away, and maybe I make one more choice on a quick slant route.
Right. I mean,
that's a me in Madden move.
It's you make the choice, and then you're checking it down. That's all Goff's doing, and partially maybe because he's been he doesn't trust. He's not going to trust his protection now too. I know that. So yeah, I mean they've got issues. I don't see this game going well.
I think it's 38-17 Vikings.
Yeah, I can see it being like 42-14 even. I mean, it's not going to be good. So
yeah, I just feel like they played every team relatively competitive for a little bit, so I don't know if it'll ever totally like get away from them. That's why I don't know.
Yeah,
and again,
it's hard to blow teams out in the NFL. It's regardless,
especially because you're going to just play a lot of things safe too. You're playing things smart. You're going to play prevent, and that lets teams crawl back in a little bit, stack up the stats, build confidence just by completing passes. So
regardless of how bad the Lions offense or roster is, like it's hard to blow any team out. It just is. It's not. It's not easy in the NFL. You don't see blowouts very often.
Yeah.
I mean,
college they'll pull their starters quite often if they're already blowing out in the second half, and that's because they have 100 people on a roster that travels with them. But like Lions or any NFL team, you play with 46 every Sunday.
Yeah.
So
that's your team.
Yeah.
Those guys, they'll figure out a way to keep it remote. Usually can keep it close. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a blowout.